All right, picture this. You're out on the open road, the hum of the engine, that endless horizon. A powerful feeling, right? Freedom. But then there's also that constant hum of uncertainty in the background. Rising costs, shifting regulations, maybe those unexpected bumps in the industry road. Well, today, we're going to take a deep dive. We've got a stack of sources here, and we're going to pull back the curtain on some major shifts and challenges happening right now in the trucking world. Our mission: cut through the noise,
So,
give you the unvarnished truth, show you a few different angles, and most importantly, explore how you can actually take control of your own journey, financially, professionally, no matter what bumps are in the road ahead.
yeah, that's exactly the goal. It's not just about knowing what's happening, right? The real power comes when you can turn that knowledge into like a real advantage for yourself. This deep dive is about helping you feel hopefully more respected, more supported in your career by having a clear view of the landscape and maybe a proactive plan for what's next.
And we're kicking things off with a story that honestly reads like a high-stakes corporate thriller. We're talking Daimler Truck Financial Services versus Kal Freight. Daimler says Kal Freight owes them a jaw-dropping $139 million. But this isn't about diesel prices or something simple. No, this is alleged fraud, a complex web, they say, of shady dealings, fake transactions, paper companies. It's like soap opera level drama, but with really serious real-world fallout.
Oh, it truly is. At the core, what Daimler is alleging is that Kal Freight just completely misrepresented their finances. They gave false or, misleading info to get over $100 million in truck and trailer leases. And what happened next? A remarkably swift bankruptcy filing by Kal Freight. There's even talk of alleged dummy corporations, shell companies set up just to shuffle assets around. That classic smoke and mirrors move, right?
Yeah.
Designed to mislead creditors, avoid accountability.
Okay, so this sounds like a huge legal mess, a real quagmire. But let's unpack this. What does this corporate implosion actually mean for the drivers caught in the middle? How does it hit them?
Yeah, that's the crucial question. For drivers, the direct fallout is just immense. Yeah. Many who signed lease agreements with Kal Freight, they suddenly found their whole operation collapsing, left stranded. Often without a fuel card, no paycheck, sometimes not even a clear way to get home. Just stuck.
Wow.
Now, from the carrier side, look, some might argue Kal Freight just grew too fast. Maybe it was bad accounting or just, unsustainable expansion. Could be. But for the driver, the person who puts their trust, their livelihood into these operations, it feels like a profound betrayal. And then you talk to industry veterans, there's this quieter conversation happening, like whispers, that maybe this isn't just a Kal Freight problem. Some see it as symptomatic of a bigger system where maybe some mega carriers inflate paper profits, for Wall Street, until the whole house of cards just tumbles.
And the industry reaction, I imagine it's been pretty strong.
Intense is one word for it, yeah. Daimler is definitely swinging hard with legal action, trying to recoup losses, send a message. We're also seeing lenders tightening up noticeably, especially for smaller carriers, newer ones trying to get fleet financing. It's getting tougher. And out there in the driver communities, the forums are absolutely buzzing. People asking how many other companies are basically faking it till they make it,
Right. So if you had to boil it down, what's the sharpest lesson a driver can pull from this whole Kal Freight mess?
Okay, the really specific lesson from Kal Freight is this. If the financial paperwork feels intentionally complicated especially with those no money down lease purchase deals, maybe through LLCs you've never heard of, that complexity, it isn't a clever loophole. That's probably the first sign of a trap. This isn't just about trust but verify. It's about recognizing that deliberately complex financial setups, particularly ones involving like shell corporations, are super high risk. The whole thing just underscores why you, as a driver, need to build your own kind of financial literacy shield. You got to protect yourself.
Okay, so from that pretty grim cautionary tale of alleged collapse, let's pivot. Let's talk about a different kind of industry move: growth, expansion. FedEx Freight's new Indianapolis hub. On paper, sounds great, right? Yeah. Expanded capacity, better logistics, new jobs. All good things.
It's definitely a strategic move, no doubt. Indianapolis is a serious logistics powerhouse. I mean, you've got I-65, I-70, I-74 all crossing right there. It's a critical spot for moving freight east-west, north-south. Plus, land and labor are generally cheaper there than on the coasts. And with e-commerce booming, there's huge demand for LTL services right there in the heartland. Yeah. So yeah, this hub is clearly built to handle more freight faster.
But, okay, faster, bigger. What's the real-world impact for drivers on the ground? Does bigger and faster actually translate to a better day-to-day for them?
Well, when you talk to drivers, it's kind of mixed,
Yeah.
On the plus side, yeah, absolutely more job opportunities, especially for line haul and city drivers, particularly if you're local to Indy. Could mean newer trucks, better facilities, sure. But then there's the other side. The potential for, like, more hustle, less downtime. With expansion comes pressure, right? Faster turnarounds, existing routes might get shuffled around. It might be great for senior drivers who get first dibs. But maybe newer drivers find themselves with less desirable shifts or facing, more intense metrics.
And how do the different players see this? Like FedEx corporate versus the local drivers versus maybe the old timers.
Right. So FedEx Corporate obviously sees this as crucial for growth, staying ahead, grabbing market share. Makes sense. Local drivers, like we said, mixed feelings. New gear is nice. Better terminals are appealing. But there's always that worry about more micromanagement, more metrics that follows this kind of growth.
Yeah, I hear that.
And the trucking old heads, they've seen this cycle before, right? They might be wary. Big company builds a huge terminal.
Yeah.
Will it end up underutilized, poorly managed in a few years? Does it really mean long-term stability? They've seen promises come and go.
So bottom line for our listener, whether they're anywhere near Indy or clear across the country, what's the takeaway?
Look, the FedEx Indy Hub isn't just a new building. It's kind of a blueprint for where freight is headed. Centralizing operations, trying to meet that e-commerce demand. So the real insight for you, the driver, is that your flexibility is your leverage here. Be ready to maybe renegotiate your terms as these ripples spread out. Even if you're nowhere near Indy, these shifts affect the whole network. It underscores that need to not get caught sleeping, right? Always be looking local for opportunities, but also have that long-term game plan. And it's another reminder, like Hervey from Life, as a trucker always says, manage your time, not just for the shippers, but for yourself, for your own career growth, your future.
Okay, switching gears from corporate moves to the actual trucks. Let's talk electric trucks, especially in drayage, the short haul stuff, often around ports or rail yards. Lawmakers are pushing zero emissions. Sounds good. But if you're a trucker, you're probably thinking, okay, but how does this actually work? In winter, going up hills. What about my real routes?
And that's exactly what a recent study dug into. They didn't just test in a lab. They used a model-based simulation to figure out how geography, like hills and seasons, affect the energy efficiency of electric drayage trucks in real-world situations. And the key findings, pretty telling. Cold climates reduce efficiency significantly. Batteries struggle, plus you got to heat the cab, that takes energy.
Right.
Hilly terrain eats up range, especially going uphill. Makes sense. Interestingly, stop-and-go traffic actually helps a bit because of regenerative braking, but, only up to a point. Warm climates generally perform better. And the big one, battery range isn't consistent. That truck getting 150 miles in sunny LA, it might only get 100 miles in Buffalo during a snowstorm. Big difference.
Wow, yeah. But what does this mean for drivers practically? Even if you're not driving electric right now, how could this research eventually impact your job, your choices?
The impact is potentially huge. Think about charging time. It directly affects your hours of service, right?
Okay.
If a route takes longer because of cold or hills, you might be stuck at a charger instead of making your delivery. So route planning becomes critical. It's not just about GPS anymore. It's got to be like energy mapping. Knowing the grades, knowing where the weather hits hardest. You might see new safety concerns around batteries in extreme temps. And you can bet fleet managers will be watching those margins closely if efficiency drops in certain conditions or seasons. It really demands a shift from just planning a route to planning energy consumption based on real-world factors.
And how are different groups looking at this data? Policymakers, drivers, tech folks?
Well, policymakers might use studies like this to say, see, it works, we just need more chargers. They use it to justify infrastructure spending. Drivers, though, often feel kind of left out. They tend to prioritize real-world experience over simulations. They're the ones who actually have to make it work day to day. Green tech advocates see this data as crucial. It helps them figure out how to optimize electric trucks for specific routes and conditions, makes the tech better. And then the skeptics, they often point to findings like their range inconsistency and say, see, it's not ready for prime time everywhere. It really reinforces that idea. One size doesn't fit all when it comes to electric trucks. Needs adaptation.
Sticking with regulations for a moment, here's something kind of surprising. NHTSA, the National Highway Traffic Safety Administration, recently pulled back on some aggressive fuel efficiency rules. They basically limited their own power. What's going on there?
Yeah, that was a bit of a curveball, and it's a
Mm,
big deal for truckers. Looking at potential positives first, it could mean fewer big cost
that's
spikes
true.
on new trucks, right?
Mhm.
If those expensive fuel-saving upgrades aren't mandated quite so aggressively, prices might not jump as much. Manufacturers get more flexibility, maybe less regulatory confusion for fleets.
Okay, sounds potentially good for the wallet, maybe.
Potentially. But then there are the negatives. It sends mixed signals about fuel savings across the industry. And it could definitely slow down the push towards electrification for heavy-duty trucks, meaning older, less efficient rigs stay on the road longer.
So who likes this move and who doesn't?
Well, independent truckers, a lot of them are probably relieved. Fewer rules often mean lower truck prices, less immediate financial pressure. So there's that perspective. Environmental groups. Furious. They see this as hitting the brakes on climate goals. Fleet operators are kind of mixed. They like consistency, but they also worry about a patchwork of state rules popping up if the federal government backs off. Like, will California try to enforce tougher standards anyway?
Right, the California question.
Exactly. And manufacturers. They're likely breathing a little easier, gives them more time to innovate at their own pace without those really aggressive, immediate federal deadlines hanging over them.
So for our listener, what's the essential takeaway from this regulatory shift?
The bottom line here is really about staying informed. Look, regardless of regulations, keeping your current truck running efficiently always saves you money at the pump, right? That doesn't change. You'll need to know your compliance zones, definitely, because state rules might still differ, especially in places like California. And always, always track your total cost of ownership. Don't just look at the sticker price of a truck. Factor in fuel, maintenance, everything. Avoid getting caught up in just the headlines or the hype. Again, it comes back to personal diligence, proactive planning. That's key to managing your costs and your future.
We've looked at big corporate stuff, industry shifts, tech, regulations, but now let's get really personal with something truly damaging. The RivX scam. This is just a brutal cautionary tale. It targeted the dreams so many drivers have. We heard about drivers paying $75,000, 75 grand, for supposed automated freight trucks that promised $5,000 to $7,000 a month in passive income. But the trucks, they never existed. And the contracts were cleverly written to basically silence complaints, block refunds, a total disappearing act.
It was just a shocking betrayal. It totally exploited all the hype around automation and AI, didn't it? RivX buried these clauses deep in the contracts, waiving rights to refunds, even stopping people from complaining publicly. They targeted independent truckers, online, slick ads, webinars, preying on that desire to maybe transition out of the driver's seat or invest for the future, took huge upfront payments, delivered absolutely nothing tangible. And when the complaints started piling up, poof, RivX just vanished. No accountability.
What's so, I don't know, heartbreaking about this is how it taps right into that vulnerability, that deep desire every driver has for a better future, maybe a way out of the constant grind. It's almost like RivX used those dreams as a roadmap for their scam.
Exactly right. From the driver's viewpoint, it's
Yeah.
absolute devastating betrayal. Many were just trying to plan for retirement, maybe level up their careers, and now they're out $75,000, often feeling, embarrassed or foolish, which isn't fair. Watchdogs see it as a classic easy money trap.
Yeah.
Just, dressed up with a fancy new tech angle. And the industry vets, they call it a slap in the face. Hard-working drivers just taken advantage of by people in suits who've likely never truly understood the road, the risks, the hard work involved.
Thankfully, the industry response seems pretty swift. Legal actions are happening. Regulators are investigating fraud.
Yeah, and there's definitely growing scrutiny now on trucking tech startups, a demand for way more transparency. And in the driver forums, you're seeing blacklists pop up, warning others about RivX and any similar schemes.
It's just awful. So much trust destroyed.
It really is. But there are critical lessons here every single trucker needs to internalize from this. First, if it sounds too good to be true, it absolutely is. Period. No legitimate investment offers thousands a month with zero work and zero proof you actually own something real. Second, read the contract twice. And seriously, pay a lawyer a few $100 to look it over. That is way, way cheaper than losing $75,000.
Good advice.
Third, ask, where is the truck? If there's no physical asset, no VIN number in your name, you own nothing but a promise on paper. Nothing. And finally, maybe most importantly, keep your voice. Any contract that tries to gag you, stop you from complaining or leaving reviews, that is a massive, massive red flag. Run away. This whole RivX nightmare is just such a stark reminder of why building your own shield, a shield of knowledge, of discernment, is absolutely essential.
Okay, so we've covered a lot. Corporate fraud, big industry shifts, tech challenges, these terrible scams. It sounds like, well, a lot of uncertainty out there. But this is where Hervey from Life as a Trucker comes in. His whole philosophy of seeing issues from all angles. And more importantly, maybe a tangible solution that kind of ties all these different threads together.
You're exactly right. All these challenges we've talked about, the fraud, the market shifts, the tech changes, the scams, they all point towards the same ultimate goal: helping you, the trucker, get out on your terms. So the solution isn't just about dodging the potholes, right? It's about actively building your own shield from the ups and downs of freight rates, the economy, just the sheer unpredictability of this industry. And that core message, you hear it from lifesatrucker.com, you see it at retirefromtrucking.com. It's really profound. Use your time not just for the shippers, not just for the brokers, but use it for yourself, for your own future.
And specifically, retirefromtrucking.com focuses on a really practical solution, learning how to use AI to create extra streams of income. How does that actually work for a driver? What does that look like?
It's really about leveraging your downtime, those hours off duty, managing time for yourself to learn new skills, build online income streams. The core idea is that making money, online money that's recurring, coming in month after month, that can help you retire when you actually want to, not when the industry dictates. And it protects you, or at least, softens the blow if your trucking company suddenly goes under like Kal Freight, or if a recession hits freight hard. This isn't about becoming some tech genius overnight, not at all. It's about practical ways to use AI tools maybe to help generate content for a blog, manage a small online business, create simple digital products people can buy, things you can learn and do in your off hours. This strategy fundamentally empowers drivers. It shifts the whole dynamic of your career. It gives you agency, control that you just don't have when you're solely dependent on the next load.
That raises a really important question then. How does actively preparing for retirement, building these online income streams, how does that fundamentally change a driver's relationship with the road, with the job itself, today?
Oh, it's a complete game changer, seriously. It shifts the power dynamic entirely. You move from being solely dependent on freight rates, or the whims of a dispatcher, or the fate of your company, to having real control and options, real agency. When you have those alternative income streams starting to build, you're no longer just a driver. You're becoming an entrepreneur of your own life. And that inherently makes you feel more respected, more supported, because you have control over your future. You're not just reacting to industry changes. You're proactively building your own path. It lets you drive on your terms now, knowing you have a clear path to getting out on your terms later. That's real power. Hashtag tag outro. So we've just taken quite a journey on this deep dive, haven't we? Through the high-stakes world of trucking, from corporate fraud and big industry shifts to cutting-edge tech and, unfortunately, devastating scams. It's a lot to digest, for sure. But every piece of this information, every angle we looked at, it's really a tool for you. Absolutely. And the big takeaway, the core message through all of this is pretty clear. The trucking industry is always evolving. Yeah, that brings challenges, big ones sometimes, but it also brings incredible opportunities for those drivers who are prepared, who are proactive, who are thinking ahead. Your power as a driver is truly in your hands when you plan ahead, when you stay informed, and when you build skills that go beyond just operating the truck.
You are not just a driver, remember that. You are an entrepreneur of your own life, navigating this road on your terms, with a clear path to building your future.
So here's something to think about. As the industry keeps driving forward relentlessly, how might focusing on your own personal exit strategy planning for your future beyond the truck actually make you a more resilient, maybe even a more impactful driver today?
To help you start building that plan B, to find tools and ideas, definitely check out retirefromtrucking.com. And for more real talk, more insights from fellow truckers who get it, head over to lifeasatrucker.com. We'll catch you on the next deep dive.